What's up, guys? This is The Absolute Answer. Nick Cutler, personal trainer right here at Full Spectrum Fitness, the mecca of the Midwest in Crown Point, Indiana. Hashtag Fit Dad, and today I'm coming to you with another episode of Cutler's Corner, and today we are going to count down, in my opinion, which pretty much makes it fact, the top 10 Royal Rumbles of all time. January is upon us, and WWE's marquee event, the Royal Rumble, is coming up on January 26th. The Royal Rumble is considered one of the big four for WWE. That, in addition to WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, are the four biggest pay-per-views that the company puts on every year. At one point, it was actually the Big Five when King of the Ring was still a thing, but the Royal Rumble has stood the test of time. The King of the Ring has not. I know a lot of people love WrestleMania and a lot of people love SummerSlam, but the Royal Rumble, for me, was always my favorite pay-per-view growing up. I love the excitement. I love not knowing who's coming out next. I love that anticipation every 2 minutes when you're waiting for that next superstar's music to hit, not knowing what is going to happen. And then nowadays, with all the guest surprise entrants and so on and so forth, they've really turned it into something that, even as a man in the pro wrestling business myself, I look forward to watching every year. We're going to actually count down the top 10 events, not necessarily the top 10 Rumble matches, but the top 10 events. So taking the undercard into consideration as well as the actual Rumble itself. Don't mind me, I've got all my notes saved in my phone here. Hopefully my phone doesn't die before I actually finish the video. Here we go. Starting at number 10, Royal Rumble 1996. This is going to be a sentimental favorite for me just because of the fact that the 1996 Royal Rumble was actually the first Royal Rumble that I ever saw. I did not see it live because I didn't start watching pro wrestling until October of 1996. But that was still the first pay-per-view I ever saw because I discovered a treasure trove of pro wrestling VHSs that my brother's best friend had actually recorded because his parents bought him all of the pay-per-views. And the first one that I happened to pop into the VCR was the 1996 Royal Rumble. Most people are going to remember this as the year that Shawn Michaels pulled out a second victory, making him the second man in history to not only win the Royal Rumble twice, but to win the Royal Rumble in back-to-back years, having won it the year prior in 1995. Add to that the fact that Bret the Hitman Hart would defend the WWF Championship against The Undertaker for the very first time in both of their respective careers, and what you have is a very, very underrated card. The Rumble match, it's hit and miss for me. Personally, I love Royal Rumbles where I'm not able to guess who is going to win. And the way that things were laid out in that particular year, it was really, really in your face that Shawn Michaels was going to be the favorite coming into this thing. And I like to be surprised. I like to literally look at who is going to be in this match and say, I really don't know who's going to win. But the fact that Bret Hart and The Undertaker had an amazing match, Goldust would actually fight Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental title, you still had enough to actually make it worthy of being a top 10. And like I said, it's more of a sentimental favorite for me. You might not agree, but that's okay. I'm right, you're wrong. Number 9, the 2004 Royal Rumble. This is a big no-no for most people to talk about because most people are going to know that that was the year that Chris Benoit entered the Royal Rumble at number 1 and went on to win the whole thing. But that aside, there was still a pretty awesome undercard as well. Now, one of the reasons why I really love this is because this is the year that someone actually entered the Royal Rumble at number 1 and actually was in it for an extended amount of time. Everybody likes to talk about Shawn Michaels being the first man in the history to enter the Royal Rumble at number 1 and go on to win the whole thing. But nobody talks about the fact that the year that Shawn Michaels entered the Royal Rumble at number 1, there was only 60-second intervals between each competitor. So Michaels was only in the ring for maybe 40 minutes. Chris Benoit entered the ring at number 1, and it was 90-second intervals, making him in the ring for over an hour to actually go on and win. I am not singing Chris Benoit's phrases. I am disgusted at the man's actions in the closing moments of his life, but I am strictly focusing on the performance aspect of this particular match, and that is an incredible feat of endurance. Add to the fact that Triple H and Shawn Michaels would have a knockdown, drag-out affair in a last man standing match for the World Heavyweight Championship, and my good friend Bob Holly got one of his one and only opportunities at the WWE Championship when he fought Brock Lesnar. It makes it a pay-per-view worth watching every single year during my Royal Rumble marathon. At number 8, Royal Rumble 1990. Now this is going to be a Royal Rumble that was the first one that I watched of the golden era of pro wrestling, meaning that era of Hulkamania, so on and so forth. This was actually a VHS that they had at Family Video by my house, so I was able to get my hands on it and rent it and watch it that way. It was obviously a whole new world to me because at that point all I had seen was pro wrestling from present day in 1996. So then all of a sudden I'm thrown into this world of the Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and Demolition and the Hart Foundation, and seeing a guy like Shawn Michaels, who I'm used to seeing as the WWF champion, and all of a sudden he's just a guy with blonde hair as a member of the Rockers, and it was definitely a real treat for me. Everybody's going to remember the 1990 Royal Rumble as the year that Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior had their infamous stare down in the Rumble match. Now keep in mind, the Royal Rumble match at this point was just bragging rights. It wasn't a situation where the winner would go on to face the World Wrestling Federation champion at WrestleMania. In this particular case, the World Wrestling Federation champion was actually in the match. Hence, the stare down between Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior in the middle of the match, which led to their infamous match at WrestleMania 6, one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. I love Royal Rumbles that Andre the Giant was in. Obviously, Andre never won a Royal Rumble, but when you think of a Battle Royal, you think of the fact that 9 times out of 10, the bigger guys are going to win. So it was a real treat for me as a kid to be able to see Andre the Giant, because obviously Andre had already passed away by the time I started watching pro wrestling, but it was a name that I had heard in passing throughout the times. This was actually my very first introduction in being able to see Andre perform, obviously past his prime, but I was still in awe at how big this guy was watching him growing up. Number 7, the 2017 Royal Rumble, which took place at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. Most people will associate San Antonio and the Alamo Dome with the 1997 Royal Rumble. This would take us back there 20 years later, the 20-year anniversary, we end up back there. Now, the reason why I love this Royal Rumble is because it's another one of those things where I literally could not guess who the winner was going to be, because look at some of the contestants that you had in here. You had Chris Jericho, you had Goldberg, you had The Undertaker, you had Brock Lesnar, you had Roman Reigns, you had Dean Ambrose, you had all of these main event contenders, all former WWE champions. It was, who could pick who was actually going to win? Is Goldberg going to enter the Royal Rumble and not win it? Who knows? Is Brock Lesnar going to be in the Royal Rumble and not win it? But wait a minute, The Undertaker's in this match too. It was really one of those ones that was so loaded with star power, you honestly could not pick who was going to win. And then I named all those names, and none of them won. That was actually won by Randy Orton. So again, it was a situation where you literally could not pick the winner. Also, personally, I popped for the fact that this was one of the first times that we got to see a stare down between Goldberg and The Undertaker when they were both in the Royal Rumble. Number 6, the 1994 Royal Rumble. This is a unique situation because it is the only Royal Rumble in history where it was won by 2 people. Bret the Hitman Hart and the All-American Lex Luger would both go over the top rope at the same time, with both feet touching the floor at the exact same time. What did that lead to? It led to the first dual main event at WrestleMania 10, where Yokozuna would defend the WWE Championship against both Lex Luger and Bret the Hitman Hart. Obviously, the 1994 Royal Rumble is going to stand out as a personal favorite of mine because it was won by my favorite wrestler of all time, Bret the Hitman Hart. You also had a very, very, very fun casket match between The Undertaker and Yokozuna for the WWE Championship. An awesome technical wrestling match between IRS and Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental Championship. And then you look at the people who were in the 1994 Royal Rumble itself. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Macho Man Randy Savage, Tatanka, all these awesome names from when I was growing up as a kid in the Royal Rumble match. It was awesome for me to watch. You also had the kick heard round the world. No, I'm not talking about a super kick when Michaels threw Jannetty through the barbershop window. I'm talking about when Owen Hart kicked Bret Hart's leg out of his leg. Coming in at number 5 is going to be the 2011 Royal Rumble. Now, why did this end up on my list when a lot of the Royal Rumbles that are on here are going to be from the yesteryear? Because this is the only Royal Rumble in history that had 40, not 30, 40 superstars, making it the biggest Royal Rumble in WWE history. And obviously, with the biggest Royal Rumble in WWE history, you had a lot of the biggest surprises in WWE history. You had Kevin Nash making one of the only returns he's ever made in recent history as not Kevin Nash, but Big Daddy Cool Diesel. Lots of other surprises in there, eventually won by Alberto Del Rio. The title matches, This is more of a situation where it was really a one-match show for me. I love this Royal Rumble for the pure simple fact that it's 40 guys instead of only 30, which made it that much more exciting. At number 4, the female Royal Rumble in 2018. Why does this get included in my top 10 Royal Rumbles of all time? Because it was the very, very first time that we ever had a 30-woman Royal Rumble match. Yes, we have had women like Beth Phoenix and Chyna enter the men's Royal Rumble match, but we've never had a situation where women had a Royal Rumble all to themselves. And with the Women's Revolution, obviously we were going to get something like that. Women had their very first all-women's pay-per-view. Now we have an all-women's Royal Rumble match, which would go on to be won by Asuka, which would also feature the debut of Ronda Rousey. So all around, amazing moments, including returns of past WWE divas, and then we have a return of the biggest name in female wrestling history, Ronda Rousey. It makes for awesome entertainment and something that is going to stand the test of time because there's only one first, and 2018 was it. Number 3, the 2016 Royal Rumble. The 2016 Royal Rumble is the only Royal Rumble in WWE history when the WWE Championship was actually defended in the Royal Rumble match. So, we're either going to see a guy win the Royal Rumble at number 1, or we're going to see a new WWE Champion. Either way, we're going to see history. Either we're going to have the third man enter the ring at number 1 and win, or we're going to see a new WWE Champion, which would involve the return of Triple H, which would involve Triple H becoming a 14, are you sure it's 14? 14-time WWE champion. We also would see the debut of AJ Styles in WWE. Something that was a long time coming, something that took way too long to happen. But what better way to make a debut than in one of the biggest matches all year? AJ definitely made an impact. It was in Orlando, the home of TNA, so it was the fans were well aware of who AJ was if you had not been introduced to him through other venues. Number 2, the 1992 Royal Rumble. Again, this is going to be one of those situations where it was definitely a one-match show. The undercard was very, very weak when you had the New Foundation against the Beverly Brothers. Or no, it was the New Foundation against the Orient Express. The Beverly Brothers against the Bushwhackers. The Natural Disasters against LOD. That was a technical masterpiece. And the Mountie against Roddy Piper. But the match that everybody talks about is the 1992 Royal Rumble, where the WWE title was not defended, but it was actually held up. Prior to the 1992 Royal Rumble, you had the title switch at the 1991 Survivor Series where The Undertaker beat Hulk Hogan with the assistance of Ric Flair. Then you would have Hulk Hogan win that WWE title back just a few days later at Tuesday in Texas, again with a lot of controversy. So President Jack Tunney, God rest his soul, would hold the WWE Championship up and award it to the winner of the 1992 Royal Rumble. When you look at the names that were involved in this match, it was again one of those situations where you could not pick the winner. You had Hulk Hogan. When does Hulk Hogan ever lose in the early 90s? You had The Undertaker. You had the Macho Man Randy Savage, Sergeant Slaughter, Sid Justice, the eventual winner, Ric Flair. Who could pick a winner out of all of those names? Ric Flair would also become one of the first men to enter the ring in the top 10 positions and go on to win. Ric Flair would enter at number 3 that year, putting him in the match for over an hour, and definitely was a one-man show. Ric Flair was ridiculously talented in that match and definitely won me over as a fan, despite the fact that he was a heel for the majority of his run in the WWF. Actually, for his whole run in the WWF, at least his first one in 1992. My favorite Royal Rumble match of all time, my favorite Royal Rumble pay-per-view of all time, was the 1997 Royal Rumble, the very first one to emulate from the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, where Shawn Michaels would win back the WWE Championship from Psycho Sid. But my personal favorite on that whole entire card was the actual Rumble match itself. Yes, there was a very, very stacked undercard. You had The Undertaker against Vader. You had Triple H defending the Intercontinental Championship against Goldust. You had a knockdown drag-out affair between Ahmed Johnson and Farouk. But the Royal Rumble match itself featured Bret the Hitman Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Vader, Terry Funk, Mankind, the debut in a Royal Rumble of The Rock when he was only Rocky Maivia. So many cool superstars in this match. It was the very first Royal Rumble to happen after I started watching wrestling, so I was into it from that aspect because I was so excited. And this is definitely the coming out party of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin had already begun to rise to the top of the company by winning the 1996 King of the Ring and christening the Austin 316 phrase. Throw in the fact that he had just had an amazing match with Bret Hart at the 1996 Survivor Series. Now here he comes into the Royal Rumble, and not only does he win it, but he wins it in controversial fashion, which just further emphasizes the character of Stone Cold Steve Austin. As a kid, I was pissed because as a kid, I was a Bret the Hitman Hart fan, and I hated Stone Cold Steve Austin. Going back and watching this as an adult and as a professional wrestling fan and as a professional wrestler, the brilliance behind this booking to garner that hate on Stone Cold Steve Austin, but the dual purpose that this booking did by furthering that heel turn from Bret Hart because of the frustration on his part with the way that things were going, it served two purposes. You further emphasize the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and you get to see Bret Hart's frustration levels rise just a little bit further, coming to that heel turn that's going to happen just a couple of months later. So, there you go. Let's count them down real quick. At number 10, Royal Rumble 1996. Number 9, Royal Rumble 2004. Number 8, the 1990 Royal Rumble. Number 7, Royal Rumble 2017. Number 6, Royal Rumble 1994. Number 5, 2011 Royal Rumble. Number 4, the female Royal Rumble in 2018. Number 3, Royal Rumble 2016. Number 2, Royal Rumble 1992. And the favorite of all time, Royal Rumble 1997. Like, don't like, agree, disagree, drop everything in the comments. Follow me on all forms of social media. Nick Cutler on Facebook, Cutler Coalition on Twitter, Cutler Coalition 88 on Instagram, and CUTLER8869 on Snapchat. Get all my merchandise at ProWrestlingTees.com/Cutler Coalition. All of your supplementation needs at TigerFitness.com using my personal affiliate link located in the bio of all social media platforms. And until next time, stay Cutler strong.